Hello everyone and welcome to Curious Life. Today I thought I'd take you along with me and show you what a day in my life looks like as an unconventional homemaker. And I'd also talk a little bit about intentional homemaking and what this even means. If we haven't met yet, my name is Issa and I make intentional homemaking videos with my wife Blaise. And we have done a lot of work together on ourselves and our home and made a lot of intentional choices on how we choose to live, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. So let's get started. And my day always starts with an early start and my morning routine, which includes a whole bunch of tasks that help me get a good start to the day and keep our home under control. As part of this, we always walk the dog together before heading back home so that Blaise can go to work and I can get on with some house chores before making us a coffee and spending a little time planning. I won't go into this into too much detail because I have only just done a video where I go into the whole routine only a few days ago. So if you're interested, then I'd recommend going and having a look at that video after this one. So I guess I should talk a little bit about why I've called myself an unconventional homemaker. Well, it's actually because I watch a lot of homemaking content. I watch a lot of intentional living content and a whole lot of cleaning content too. I find this type of content so satisfying to watch, and I've learnt so much from watching these amazing people. But I have come to realise that not a lot of homemaking content creators live quite the same life as I do. And that's absolutely fine, I get it. It's a pretty unusual thing to be unless you fit into a typical demographic, which is usually a woman, married or in a long-term relationship, and you usually have kids. And I have so much respect for people whose lives look like that. I can't imagine how much more there is to do when you add kids to the mix. But having said that, I don't really feel that the term homemaker only has to apply to such a narrow definition. I guess I would feel that way because I consider myself a homemaker, and I don't fit into any traditional role at all. To me, absolutely anybody can be a homemaker. If you have a home and you want to look after it and make your home as comfortable as you can, then it doesn't matter if you work or not, if you have kids, what gender you are, or if you don't fit into any of the stereotypes at all. You can still be a homemaker, and I would love for there to be less stigma surrounding the whole thing. Life and the world is exhausting enough, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with loving your own space and wanting the best for yourself and whoever you happen to live with. So I guess I should get into the ways that I'm unconventional and why we made the choices we made, because I am betting I am not the only person out there whose life has taken unexpected turns, and I would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments if this is you, because it is very easy to feel alone in the world when you don't know that people like yourself exist. So please let me know you exist and that I am not the only one out there who isn't conventional. I guess a good place to start is by the fact that I have a wife and we do not have kids. This is definitely not a place I expected myself to be in. I actually thought growing up that I would have a pretty traditional life. I'd get married, have kids, get through life as best as I could, but it just didn't work out that way for me. And this is absolutely fine. Sometimes life takes you in unexpected directions. Blaise also didn't really expect this life. We are both very happy that this is the life we ended up with, but it came as a surprise nonetheless. It was actually our struggles in the past that brought us together. We have both talked about this a lot because we are really quite similar, and we have both never really felt like we ever fitted in anywhere. And although we had both managed to get ourselves through education and into careers, there was something that always felt different, or like daily life was more of a struggle than it should have been. And this really started to show as we got a little older, and we both ended up having nervous breakdowns. Luckily we had them at different times. Blaise was actually off work on long-term sickness when I met her, and this is actually also where our homemaking journey began. She was really struggling at home, and as our relationship grew, I started to come over every weekend and help her keep on top of her house. And it was just something that we'd do together at the weekend. We'd give her house a clean and spend some time together. And then eventually she started to get better and she could go back to work, and we ended up moving in together. We were both working full-time and trying to keep up with a house and a social life, and my parents were also getting older and getting really quite ill. And then as Blaise started to get better, I started to get worse. I was really struggling with work, life, and dealing with previous traumas, and I was at a point where I was just spending more time crying in the bathroom while I was at work than I was working. Then my dad passed away, and a year later, so did my mum, and I had reached my limit for being able to cope. One day, when I was in a real crisis, we had a really long conversation and decided that I really needed a break from work. It was one of the hardest times of my life. It is hard to explain what being in that type of mental health crisis is like if you haven't been there, and Blaise's support made such a difference to me. And the problem with having difficulties with your mental health is that it never really goes away, and it's something that you just have to learn and manage to cope with. We are doing so much better now. now. But it was this period of life that led us to the point we are now, and the reason I'm a homemaker. This didn't happen straight away. This was actually quite a long journey that took several years, and we made a few discoveries during this time. The first is that Blaise is autistic. We managed to get her diagnosed just before it became really difficult to get an appointment for this, and we also realised that I'm probably neurodivergent too, and I'm trying to get through all the processes involved in getting an assessment for both ADHD and autism, because I could be either or both, who knows. But during this time I did recover after my breakdown, and we realised that I probably wouldn't cope again in the same type of pressurised work environment I'd been in before. So I decided to become self-employed and built up a little client base as a writer instead. But as part of this I took on a few more of the homemaking roles because I was at home and Blaise was out all day. Because even though we were improving in many areas of our life, our home was still a problem. We could never quite get on top of it. It seems like such a silly thing to struggle with, especially when you've come through some pretty big struggles in life. But this is one area that has been the bane of my entire life. I've just never seemed to be able to keep on top of the housework, cleaning and looking after myself and my home. And Blaise struggles in these areas too. We both desperately wanted a lovely home that was clean, tidy, uncluttered, and a haven for us to be in, but we couldn't seem to achieve it. This is probably when I first started to find YouTube content in these areas, and I devoured these videos and tried to learn as much as I could. And then life threw us another curveball that we weren't expecting. Blaise had career opportunities that we had never expected her to have or to pursue. She is an engineer and has worked really hard to get where she is. Her having a promotion meant taking on more work, and that meant that we had some thinking to do, because we had come to realise that we couldn't do absolutely everything in life, and we had to make some choices about what we wanted from life and how we could achieve it. Because our problem was that we had started to cope with the house a little bit more by this point. We had divided up the chores in a way that we could maintain a fairly clean and tidy environment. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. But Blaise's promotion meant that she would be out of the home more, she'd have less time and a lot less energy, and she just wouldn't have been able to cope with a more demanding job and worry about our home. Our home and environment were really important to us at this point because of the effect it has on our mental health. Neither of us ever want to go back to that dark place we were in before, and our home has such a big impact on how we feel. If it's messy or cluttered, we both start to struggle with depression. So we decided that we needed to prioritise Blaise's career, but we also needed to prioritise the house. And my type of work is one where I can do as much or as little as I want or I need to in order to pay the bills. So I could drop the amount of work I was doing and take on the responsibility for keeping us safe, clean, warm, fed and happy, which in all honesty I find really rewarding. This didn't come without sacrifices, because it meant relying on one income for most of our income. But the sacrifices we've made financially have been absolutely worth it. And for Blaise's career, this was absolutely amazing. She's been able to focus on it and has even been promoted again since. And it turns out that if I have the time and space to focus on our home, I'm actually not too bad at it. I still struggle with executive dysfunction, and some days are better than others, but on the whole, I'm pretty proud of myself that I've finally learned how to take care of the basics of a clean and tidy home. But I am on to the next part of my day, and today is errand day for me, which is the day I pop and get all of those little jobs done that need doing. So I'm hopping on a train into town to pick up Blaise's contact lenses. I've also got a little top-up shop to do, and I'm going to spend a little time catching up on uni because I am really behind. I guess me being a student is also something that fits into my unconventional life, even though this isn't too unusual, except that I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do with this degree. But this is a bit of a pattern with me in education, because I already have one degree and I didn't really know what I was going to do with that one either. But the degree I'm doing now is in psychology, which is an area I find fascinating, so maybe I'll work out what I want to do with it in the future. But I am very behind on the work though, so I need to do a lot of reading to catch up. So while I'm out, I'm going to grab a coffee and some lunch and do that. Being a student was actually one of the very intentional decisions we made when we were discussing all the things that were changing in our life. Blaise's career was going well, but by this time I was basically a full-time homemaker, and we didn't want my career and opportunities to completely stagnate and disappear. And I'd always wanted to do a psychology degree. I always regretted that my first degree wasn't in a subject that I truly loved and was passionate about, so we decided that I'd do a degree during the time I was supporting Blaise in her career. Although looking after our home, doing a degree and making 2 or more YouTube videos a week is really quite demanding on my time, I actually think going to work a normal 9-to-5 day job was a lot easier. Although I find this life far more rewarding and interesting, so I don't mind just how busy I am. I am also so grateful for the opportunity to spend time doing the things that I love. I just wouldn't have been able to pursue these things while I was working the way that I used to. So it's time to head back home again, and I have a little shopping to unpack, and there is a few hours left before it's time to cook dinner. So I did a little bit of my daytime home chores. I follow the Fly Lady system, and this means I have to find about 15 to 30 minutes in a day to work on some chores. Today I didn't spend too long because I also had a video to work on, so I rushed around to get those done before recording a voiceover and then got on with some editing. I absolutely love making YouTube videos, but wow, is it a time-consuming thing to do. So I mentioned earlier that I took a train to get my errands done, and that's actually because of another decision we made. Last year we had a car accident and our car was written off. We were insured and we were already looking at cars to buy, but then Blaze threw out the idea of maybe we should consider if we wanted a car or not. Maybe we could manage without one. So we talked about it for quite a long time. Neither of us like driving, and we are lucky that we have the option for trains nearby. So we decided to try an experiment to see what it would be like to not have a car for a while. For the most part, we have really enjoyed being carless. It might seem counterintuitive, but since we took away the pressure of having to drive, we have been to more places and been on far more adventures. We hadn't realised just how much having to drive affected us. There are some downsides, such as everything taking just a little bit longer. I can't just pop into town for an hour. I have to plan for at least half a day out. But this has helped us to slow down a little, enjoy a slightly slower pace of life. This is kind of what I mean when I talk about intentional living or intentional homemaking. It's not about having a perfect home or the perfect life. It's just about finding time to slow down and consider the choices you make. Take the car, for example. If we hadn't stopped and thought, we would have just replaced the car and continued dealing with those anxieties. Now we don't have that. We made an intentional decision to choose a different path, one that has helped us take our time to enjoy the journey rather than rush from place to place as fast as we can to get things done. One video edited and ready to release, and it's time to cook dinner and relax for the evening. Blaze works from home for about half of the week, so today she helped me cook dinner and we chatted about our days while doing that. Then we usually spend a couple of hours relaxing together in front of the TV, usually watching YouTube. YouTube is our main TV watching, and we are always on the lookout for more channels to watch. So if you have any recommendations, let me know in the comments section. Our evening ends pretty early, and we start to get on with our evening routine from about 8:30, and we head to bed by about 9:30. We have a few chores to do during this time that help us to keep on top of the house and keep it tidy and clean, and we head to bed early because we get up so early. But back to intentional homemaking for a moment. It is our struggles and our life experiences that have brought us to the life we have now. Our home is our comfort zone. It's our place to feel safe, warm and cozy, and we decided that we wanted to make that a real priority. So much so that we decided that I'd be a homemaker, and Blaze absolutely loves telling people that she has a stay-at-home wife. I think she just likes to see the surprise on their faces, because it's not something you come across very often these days. We are an unconventional couple. We don't fit into the usual traditional boxes that you'd assume when you hear the term stay-at-home or homemaker, but we absolutely love our life and our choices. Homemaking isn't something that should be looked down upon or something that only certain people are allowed to do. It doesn't matter who you are. Our homes are our sanctuaries, and everyone can be a homemaker. And that's bedtime for us, and time to end the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this little peek into our lives interesting. If you can relate to anything I said, I would love to hear from you, and we won't be stopping making these videos anytime soon. So if you want to see more intentional homemaking videos, or cleaning or decluttering videos, then please subscribe. And if you'd like to see more of our daily routines in more detail, then we released a video on that only a few days ago, so check that out. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!